of all branches often able to become a certified 3D artist. We decided to branch into product animations. Mhm. Congrats. It's extremely important to get enlightened that product animators are always responsible for creating engaging animations that showcase functionalities, features, and benefits of any product. In other words, be innovative. Don't stop thinking. That's what I mean. And that brings us into today's procedural guide, which is water splash simulation. So let's assume let's assume you have already modeled your object. It could be a can just like mine. It could be a fruit. It could be anything, any desired object of your choice. But in this contest, I decided to go for a can. So the initial thing you do to create these water splashes, you click Shift A. As soon as you click Shift A, the option of the mesh comes up. Then you branch out to cube. Well, our cube is actually bigger than the object, so you scale it down. Scale it down. Wow. You scale up your object. So you bring up the cube to the middle of the object. Yeah. And go to the object option, scroll down to quick effects, and you branch out to quick liquid. So that option on its own automatically creates a domain for the project. So scale up the domain to your desired size. So the work of the domain here is to actually accommodate and give the splash simulation a particular pattern or a particular direction to flow through. Okay. So you locate the cube once more and drag it towards the y axis. Yeah, I think this is perfect. Yeah, this is perfect. Our liquid simulation is beginning to take shape. So you go back to the domain and you check out the physics properties. So here the default resolution is 32. So it depends on the configuration of your system or the processor speed of your system, or let me say the processor capacity of your system. You can decide to scale up the resolution to whichever resolution that fits you, that makes you happy. But in this context, because of the kind of system I use, I'm going to scale it up to let's say 90. So what's next? You scroll down, scroll down, scroll down to the simulation type. By default, the simulation type is always on repeat. So you move it to modular. Reason for using the modular option is to avoid any form of downtime. Let's assume during the course of this project, your system, your Blender application crashes, or while rendering, your work crashes. The modular will help you to continue from where you stopped. And another thing that both modular and the resumable option does is it enables you to bake your objects individually. So after you click the resumable box, you move down to the feed weight. Gravity. Gravity by default is always on 1.0. So you scale down the gravity to 0. Reason for that is so that the liquid simulation, the liquid splash will not go downwards. And immediately after adjusting the gravity settings at the feed weight, you go to the scene properties. At the scene property phase, you uncheck the gravity. Having done that, you go to your object, which is in this context, my object is the can. And where do I go? Where do I go? Yeah, the physics property. At the physics property of the can, you click on fluid type, you make it effector. Reason for making it the effector is such that it will change the behavioral pattern of the water splash as soon as it make contacts with the object. Then immediately after the adjustment on the object, go back to the cube. The cube in this particular project is located at or is located along the y-axis. So our fluid is already uh, for the cube. The fluid type is already in flow type liquid, and flow behavior is a geometry. Then you mark the initial velocity. Uh, for the initial velocity, You adjust it to minus 1000. The reason why I used minus 1000 is best known to me, just so that I can slow down the pace of the water velocity. For your home project, you can decide to make the adjustment same as mine or something else. But in this context, that is what I really want. And I believe this is going to work for me. And if at all it doesn't work for me, I'll continue to make adjustment till I get the right readings for for the behavioral pattern that I am expecting. So what's next? Yeah, what's next? Yeah. So with all those settings, I think the next thing we have to do is to bake. So what's the next thing we do here? Okay, yeah, the mesh. So we click the mesh box. You open up the option, the oppress factor. I think, yeah, oppress factor. You scale it up to 4, and what's the next thing? Yeah, you bake the mesh. Remember, uh, at the modular type, at the replace section, I adjusted it to modular. Reason for the modular adjustment is such that I can bake each of my items, each of my instructions individually. So only God knows how long this will take. But so after the bake, this is what uh, this is the kind of simulation that you are expected to have. If your simulation is not similar to this, here are a few things to check. You free all the mesh. After you free the mesh, you click on the cube. When you click on the cube, let me show you a procedure guide on what to do. After you click on the cube, the initial velocity, let's assume the initial velocity that you decided to pick was also along the y-axis. Continue to use, if you noticed, initially I used minus 1000. It came out really bad. So it was a negative result whereby the water splash showed a red notification. So I had to reduce the figure down to minus 10. When I reduced it to minus 10, the notification changed back to blue. So as soon as it changed back to blue, I had to start the process of baking all over again. I baked it. After baking it, I went straight down to the mesh. I went straight down to the mesh here, and I baked the mesh. Please don't forget the oppress factor should be at 4, while the particle should be 2, or should remain as 2. Another error, another very serious error is this. Let's assume you notice the liquid splash or the water splash went through your object. This is how to correct it. You come to the object settings. When, if you notice, my object has fog. So now that I clicked on it, what I clicked on just now is the fog. I mean the fog or the dew on the object. So one more click took me straight down to the object. So for the surface thickness, I decided to increase it by 1. Increasing the surface thickness, we make it have some level of opacity such that water will not be able to flow through. So instead of bouncing the water back, the water will find other ways to flow around the object or the mesh. So going back to the dew, you can see that the surface thickness of the dew is 0. So it's actually of no use for the surface thickness to be 1 or to be 2. It definitely doesn't hold any sense, So those are the errors to watch out for. And after that, after you've been able to achieve this kind of splash effect, you go to your liquid domain, you open your Blender kit. Blender kit is actually an add-on. I believe you have Blender kit installed on your system already. Blender kit is a free and open source Blender add-on that speed up the rate of your project. So here you search water. So when you search water, there are different geometry water breakdown here that you can choose that will speed up your project. And in case you don't really understand the intricacies or the dynamics of lighting your project, just save yourself the stress, move to HDR straight up. So here I chose, I can't even remember what the HDR that I used. Let me scroll down. Okay, so I chose one of these bright bright outlook. So you can choose that. So automatically it will illuminate all the surroundings of your project. So after that, you build a plane. So that plane will help you to cover up, will serve as a cover up for the HDR so that the HDR will not be reflecting on your project. So here is how you can view it with your camera. So this is it. This is how you view it with your camera. And let's view. Okay, let me play. So this is the behavioral pattern of the splash. And if you notice, I already keyframed my object. So my object is slowly rotating as well. So for me, there is really no need for me to render this, but you can render it. And if you notice, the liquid splash is not as much as what you saw in the introductory video. Reason for that is because my other system, I'm using it to render a project. So the configuration of this particular system that I'm using for this procedural guide is low. So I decided to choose a very low resolution for the water splash. So this is where you see this is where you make your resolution adjustment. So here I made use of 80. So you can decide to scale it up to like maybe 150 or 200 depending on the capacity of your system. So was left? I think that was all. That was all. Yeah. So from there, you can decide to render. And if you decide to render, you can either render in circles or you can render in circles or you render in eaves. So if you check my page, there is another tutorial where I explained how you can render with circles, and your job will be available in no time. You won't suffer any form of downtime. The render speed will be optimized. If you want to learn about that, check my previous lecture. And if there's anything else that you would like me to walk you through, just drop a comment below. And if you like this procedural guide, don't forget to like, share, and subscribe. See you next time.